All right, let's dive into the one science that's, well, all about you. But what even is psychology? Forget everything you think you know from the movies, because we're about to find out what it's really all about.
Seriously, just for a second, what's the first image that pops into your head when you hear that word? Because, if you're like most people, it's probably something a little dramatic.
Yeah, do you picture someone who can just look deep into your eyes and instantly know all your secrets? Some kind of mentalist who can read your thoughts.
Or maybe it's that classic scenario, right? You tell someone you're studying psychology, and they immediately get all weird and defensive, thinking, oh no, have they been analyzing me this whole time we've been talking? And then there's this guy, Sigmund Freud. For decades, his work really shaped how the public saw psychology, and a lot of it was focused on what's broken in us. I mean, this quote is pretty bleak, but here's the thing. That old, kind of negative view, it's just one tiny, outdated piece of a much, much bigger and way more hopeful puzzle.
So let's get way beyond the therapist's couch.
Because at its heart, psychology isn't some kind of magic trick. It's a science.
Okay, so this is the official definition, and you've got to pay attention to those three parts. First, scientific. That means it uses a rigorous, systematic method. Then, behavior. That's everything we do that you can actually see, from a simple kiss to crying at a movie. And mental processes, well, that's all the internal stuff. Your thoughts, your feelings, your memories, you can't see them, but they are absolutely real.
In this science, it has a really clear mission, and it breaks down into 4 goals. First, you have to be able to describe what's happening. Then, based on that, you try to predict what will happen next. From there, the really tricky part, you try to explain why it's happening. And finally, use all that knowledge to help change things for the better.
Now, to do all this, psychologists have to adopt a certain way of thinking. They have to be critical thinkers, always asking, wait, how do we actually know that's true? They're skeptical, questioning the things that everybody knows. They fight for objectivity, relying on hard evidence, not just gut feelings. And maybe most important of all, they are just endlessly curious.
And you know what? That mindset is the firewall between real psychology and what we call pseudoscience. Pseudoscience loves to use fancy scientific-sounding language, but there's no real research behind it. The biggest difference? Real science is always open to being proven wrong. Pseudoscience, well, it just plugs its ears and ignores any evidence that doesn't fit its narrative.
Oh, here's a perfect example. Learning styles. I bet you've been told at some point that you're a visual learner or an auditory learner. It's a super popular idea, especially in schools. But there's just one little problem. The science doesn't back it up. Not at all. Study after study has shown that tailoring teaching to someone's supposed style makes absolutely zero difference in how much they learn. It's one of those ideas that just feels true but isn't.
So how can just one field of science study something as ridiculously complex as a human being? Well, it doesn't just use one approach. Instead, think of it like looking at us through 7 completely different lenses.
And these aren't like competing teams trying to prove each other wrong. It's more like they're different specialists, all working together on the same complex case to get the full picture.
Let's take a complex idea, like forgiveness. To really understand it, you need all 7 of these lenses. A biological psychologist might put someone in a brain scanner to see what lights up when they forgive. A behavioral psychologist would ask what in their environment rewards forgiving behavior. A sociocultural psychologist is going to look at how different cultures view and express forgiveness. See? It's the same topic, but each lens shows you a totally different and totally vital part of the story.
Okay, so we've got the science and we've got the theories, but where does psychology actually happen? The answer might surprise you. It's way, way beyond the therapist's office.
So yeah, while a lot of psychologists are in private practice, that's a big chunk of the pie for sure, it's not even half the story. Psychologists are absolutely essential in our hospitals, in our schools, in community health centers. The field is incredibly diverse.
And hey, let's clear up another super common point of confusion. What's the difference between a psychologist and a psychiatrist? It's simple, really. A clinical psychologist has a doctorate in psychology, a PhD or a PsyD, and they're the ones who provide psychotherapy or talk therapy. A psychiatrist, on the other hand, is a medical doctor, an MD. They specialize in psychological disorders, and because they're physicians, they can prescribe medication. Both are crucial, but their training is totally different.
And the specializations get even more varied and honestly pretty cool. You've got IO psychologists working in the corporate world to make our workplaces better, forensic psychologists applying their knowledge to the legal system, sports psychologists helping athletes get that mental edge to perform at their best, health psychologists who study that powerful link between our minds and our bodies, and so many more.
So, after all of that, what does this huge, diverse scientific field actually have to do with you? Well, pretty much everything. This is where it gets personal.
Remember that gloomy Freud quote? Well, in direct contrast to that, there's a whole branch of the field called positive psychology. Its entire mission is to scientifically study human strengths and what makes us flourish. It asks questions like, what makes life truly worth living? How can we build happiness and resilience? It's literally the science of what goes right with people.
And if there's one core takeaway from all of this, it's this incredibly powerful connection. Psychology is the science that exists right at that intersection, where our mind and our body meet. Your thoughts, your stress, your relationships, all of it has a real physical impact on your health. Everything is connected.
So you see, psychology isn't just about studying other people. It's the science of us, the science of you. It's a toolkit for understanding your own mind, your own behaviors, your own life. So we'll just leave you with this one final thought. Now that you know what psychology really is, what part of the amazing mystery of you do you want to explore first?